From LA, Tito Jackson well, Tito, you were very good friends for a long time, weren't you?
Yes, we were.
How would you describe David?
David was more like a brother to the family. He was a lot of fun, always joyful, always a jokester. David shared some good times with us. We enjoyed David very much.
He was particularly friendly, I know, with Michael, before Michael so sadly died. What was their relationship like?
Well, they've been knowing each other ever since, I would say, 1970. And they were very close friends. They spent a lot of time together as well. They shared a lot of movies together, playgrounds and things of that nature. So they had a very abundant relationship.
And you know what, Tito, I think a lot of people over here know David Guest particularly because of his role on reality television shows. But what is he most well known for in the States?
Well, he was mostly just known as David started out basically in show business in the 70s as a publicist. He started out as a publicist for, I believe it was Michael McDonald, and Jackson's as well, Al Green. And he also was known for giving parties, galas, things of that nature. He was known to every star, just about. Everybody loves David Guest. Everybody knows David Guest. We called him the star for a person that was known as a star. He carried himself as a celebrity back in the day.
I'm sure, like the rest of us, you're in a state of shock at the news that we've woken up to here in the UK.
Yeah, you know, I feel like I've used the word devastated a couple of times, you know, since the news broke of Prince dying at 57. It seems unreal because in a lot of ways he was a bit of an ageless wonder, you know, if you will. You know, and one of the very few artists, if not the only artist, to have remained consistently relevant for nearly 4 decades, an amazing feat in and of itself, but someone who still was able to grab headlines and wasn't a nostalgia act at all.
And Kelly, he was notorious, wasn't he, for his privacy and for the fact that during his most productive, in terms of hits period, he didn't give interviews. So how come you got to speak to him? What were the circumstances of that?
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise to me, too, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm a member of an organization here in the States called the National Association of Black Journalists, and we have an annual convention every summer in various cities. And last summer, we happened to have a convention in Minneapolis, Prince's home state, and he heard we were in town and literally, quite literally, invited on Twitter thousands of us to come out to a dance party at his home. No one knew what the expectations were other than we were gonna get a chance to go to Paisley Park. Prince wanted to meet with 10 of us and to sit down at his home, and I walked into, you know, after a long hallway with all of these great photos of his career throughout the years and different iterations of hairstyles and artistry, kind of walked into Studio A, and he was sitting behind the boards and shook my hand and then said, you know what, why don't we go upstairs into a room that's a little bit bigger that can suit all of us. And we walked through this home where I saw like a 50s style kitchenette on one side, and there were cages of doves, you know, all throughout the home, which was crazy. I'd often heard about the dove room, but they were just kind of sprinkled throughout the home, and went upstairs into this conference room and sat down with him for about an hour. And it was a no-holds-barred conversation. We could talk about anything and everything. He was very gracious, very open, very honest, and at times funny. It was, again, like I said, an unexpected experience, but one that I wrote about then and I wrote about now, and was probably one of the highlights of my career.
And what was he like, Kelly? I mean, you say he was disarming, but what was it like sitting in his presence, being in his home, sitting around the table with him?
Yeah, you know, he was great. He was actually sitting next to me, and if you can imagine this, wearing a gold lame pantsuit and his afro kind of picked out. And even though, you know, he's a small guy, 5 feet 2 inches, I had a very, very large presence.
Hello again. Well, tributes have been flowing in this morning for singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen, who's died at the age of 82.
Yeah, he's been described as a visionary and an inspiration for generations of artists. Ross King is in Los Angeles for him. Ross, I think we said in the openers that Hallelujah has been covered by over 100 different artists. It's an extraordinary legacy he's leaving, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely incredible. You think of that rumbling bass voice. You think of even odd moments when he appeared as a villain in an episode of Miami Vice. The man really did do absolutely everything. Reported on Facebook he died of undisclosed causes. It is with profound sorrow we report that legendary poet, songwriter and artist Leonard Cohen has passed away. We have lost one of music's most revered and prolific visionaries. A memorial will take place in Los Angeles at a later date. The Canadian inspired so many people, from James Taylor to Bob Dylan. But as you mentioned there, Ben, he certainly leaves us with an absolute classic in the shape and the sound of Hallelujah.
Yeah, certainly. And because of all those people that loved him, it's no surprise that many celebrities have been tweeting their tributes and their personal feelings about it.
No, they have Bette Midler saying another magical voice stilled. Russell Crowe saying thanks for the quiet nights, the reflection, the perspective, the wry smiles and the truth. And K.D. Lang saying thank you, Leonard Cohen. Swift rebirth, my friend. It is an incredible legacy that he leaves.
We were trying, Ross, to work out how many copies of Hallelujah might have been sold around the world. Over 100 different artists have released it. We've had a number of X Factor artists release it, of course,
Yes,
over here
absolutely.
famously.
Yeah.
Jeff Beck did a fantastic,
Yeah,
version.
amazing version,
And we'll try and work that out because there must be hundreds of millions, really.
Oh. Absolutely phenomenal amount, and so brilliant as well that shows like X Factor brought that classic song back for a different generation too.
Good morning to you this morning, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. We're all so sorry for your loss, and I imagine at this very sad time, it's been extraordinary to see the outpouring of love and warmth from so many people who remember your sister so fondly.
Yes, indeed. I mean, obviously it's very sad for the family, particularly for Victoria's two children, and from the point of view of myself as her brother and our two sisters. I mean, I'm the eldest of the four. Victoria's the youngest, 13 years younger than me, and yet of the four of us, she's the first to go, and that's a very, very great shock. But I think over and above that, it's quite obvious that Victoria is even more loved by the public than perhaps we thought she was, because in all the years that she's been working in her various endeavours, the public have really taken her to their hearts, and everything that she's done in the last 30 years certainly has been very, very popular, and people remember Victoria and they remember her particular performances.
It's been announced that the actor Will Smith and the former heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis are going to be pallbearers when Muhammad Ali is laid to rest at the end of this week. The world comes together to remember the boxing legend, and his friend, our next guest, Frank Bruno, says that he's going to miss him like his own dad.
Well, the pair first met when Frank was around 19 years old, and since he passed away on Friday at the age of 74, Frank described him as one of the greatest boxers that the world will ever see. Frank, it's great to see you.
Thank you very much,
you know, we all have memories of Muhammad Ali and thoughts about him, but for British boxers like you, for black British boxers, what did Muhammad Ali mean to you?
It meant a lot, you know what I mean? Sometimes seeing the guy on television and seeing him promoting boxing and talking about black people suffering and whatever, he was a very, very fatherly uncle type figure. Yeah, very good guy.
When you met him, what was that like for you?
It was unbelievable meeting him, because my dad used to love him, my mum used to love him, my brother used to love him, and actually meeting him for myself was a inspiring, very touching moment for me.
How did you find him?
I found him quite funny, actually, you know what I mean? Quite character. He gave you a praise, but he said that he was prettier and them sort of like lyrics, and he was showing us some tricks as well, you know? But he was a good guy, a very nice guy. God rest his soul.
What strikes me about everybody, I mean, I know I was never lucky enough to meet him. I know that you did briefly, and obviously you had a really special encounter with him.
Yeah.
What strikes me about everybody's meeting with Muhammad Ali is that there's something sort of magical about it.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that simply because he was such a great boxer, or was there something in his personality?
His personality, he was a great boxer, he was a great human being, he was a character. He could leave a nice taste in everybody's mouth, or being around him, he had that charisma. He was very, very talented, very, very warm. But I think at the time, when I saw him, he was learning how to do tricks. He wanted to be a magic guy, so he showed me the thumb trick, and whatever. But I remember it like it was yesterday.
She was just brilliant. It's so nice as well that her longest marriage was, in fact, her last marriage. She got married in 1986 to Frederick Prinz von Anhalt. He was there with her when she passed away from heart failure. 1936 was when it all began as Miss Hungary. Then it was TV and films, as I mentioned. But it's the quotes. I mean, there's so many of them. I never hated a man enough to give him his diamonds back. I want a man who's kind and understanding. Is that too much to ask of a millionaire? And then I think this one is very good as well. This is a good one for the ladies. One of my theories is that men love with their eyes, women love with their ears. Maybe her best role was as herself.
Does he actually? Maybe you're right. That was in the mix of all that sort of mischief. Maybe you're right, because we all like a sense of
Well, she knew
humour
about
and
men
fact.
in the end, didn't she?
She did.